Hi everyone.
Hi guys.
Lovely to see you again. Welcome back to the Loft. Here we are in the wonderful Loft. Yeah. It's very nice. So this is a slightly interesting video, isn't it? It's not about a particular place, a particular house, a particular
pure
style.
Self-indulgence.
Pure self-indulgence. Yeah, we're taking a little look at basically some stuff that has been influential on our perfume journey.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, perfume that made us the smellers that we are.
Yeah, that turned us into the great inspirational beings that we are now.
Yeah. I mean, I find
it's a long journey, isn't it? Really, when you go back in time.
It is it's a pretty long journey, but I found it quite easy to kind of pinpoint a few kind of pivotal fragrances.
Yes.
That likewise. I felt like this fragrance summed up this summed up this did this. Yeah. And I think as I go later on, the time period becomes shorter.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I absolutely, I know what you mean. I think there are things, I've got things here which were pivotal to me in terms of getting me into this passion of mine. And it's, if you were going to look at it on paper, you'd say that's not a list that you would associate with maybe where we are now. I don't know.
Yeah. But
there's some things here that I don't really wear anymore. And maybe even things here that I might criticize now in a purely objective way. But that at that point in time was important.
It's also maybe worth saying that it was very much Joe who, as I'll explain later, but Joe who got me into this in a kind of a serious way and introduced me to things, and we'll talk about that a bit.
But also I have to say, like I say to all my students who I inspire over the years, I just found what was already in you. I'm kidding. No, but you already had that in you. I maybe was delving a bit down the rabbit hole. But you already had the bug.
But it's interesting, there's a couple of fragrances when I can see some of the early ones, like planted seeds, things. But it's quite nice to do it here, because a lot of the fragrances, before we started doing videos, a lot of the fragrances we did discover in the Loft.
Right here.
One of the reasons we do this in the Loft is because Joe is, he's a pianist, but he also happens to be the organist at this church, and I am a singer and happen to sometimes sing in this church, and often I would come to sing for Joe, and we would bring along new fragrances, and we go, oh, you should try this. This. And we would just sit here,
still do to this
spraying
day,
and smelling, and someone said, you guys should just video this.
Yeah, and it's so nice, and I think it's a journey that I really want to continue, and I think when we look back in years to come, we'll say, oh God, yeah, we've really gone in a completely different direction from where we were then. We'll have found a whole new. We might go really minimalistic and not like things that smell of anything. We might be smelling things that are just water and finding little facets of oxygen and hydrogen that nobody knew. I'm kidding. We won't. But it still has to be. So how do you want to do it? Do you want to go one on one or all in one go?
Should we alternate?
Let's alternate. Yeah, sure. I think that's good. Shall I go?
Go. Yeah.
I'm going to go first. Okay.
Yeah, you go first.
So I've got to start at the beginning, really.
Good place.
Now, we've spoken about this recently, the little Aramis there. This is the first perfume I can remember ever wearing. So on that basis alone, I think this is interesting. I may have said in a previous video, I sprayed this on myself. It was my dad's fragrance, and I sprayed it on myself. Or in fact, I think looking back, I may have doused myself in it, because I have a feeling.
Was it spray or?
I think it was an aftershave, and I have a feeling that I just sort of poured it on myself.
That's so good.
And I went to play tennis. I was a little sort of 10-year-old kid, and I was going off to play tennis with my chorister friends, and I thought I should wear some of this. It was a really hot day, and I smelled really good all day and felt really super confident. Yeah, so Aramis, just kind of herbal leather, absolutely kind of classic of the time. 1965, I think it was. Same year as Abbey Rouge, which is another masterpiece.
So how old were you so when was the tennis story? You've told the tennis story before.
I think I was about 10 years old. 10. I think I was about 10 years old, and I just doused myself in this. It was in my dad's cupboard, and I thought, oh, that's really good.
Did you
I like
ask him,
it. No, he wasn't even there. I was at home. I remember going in there and seeing it, and I opened it and smelled it. And I thought, oh, yeah. And I didn't know how to wear it, pulse points or anything. I kind of poured it on myself. and then I stank of it. I mean, I must have put a lot on. And bearing in mind, this was 1990. It was probably a slightly stronger beast than it is now. You know, all the oak moss and everything intact. But I love it, and it's been pivotal to me. And I don't wear it much. I mean, I've had a couple of bottles over the years. There's hardly anything gone out of there, but I still love it, and I will always make sure I've got a bottle of Aramis lurking somewhere, either at my place or my dad's place.
The thing with these bottles, sometimes you don't want to wear it every day, but it's nice to have it as a reference, and just occasionally just a little spray in the evening after a shower or something.
Yeah, totally. That's what I do. Just a little nostalgia trip.
So good.
I love it, and I'll never be without a bottle of that, because it reminds me of my dad. It reminds me of being young. And it's the first thing I remember ever wearing. Maybe when I was younger, my dad would have said, "Oh, here, have a little drop of this." I don't know. I don't remember that. But that, and Old Spice, in fact,
We never mentioned this, but
no,
but in the organ,
it
lives in the organ loft.
And in fact, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it home in case someone comes up here and steals it. But this is a vintage bottle of Old Spice. I am actually going to put that in my pocket, because people do come up here sometimes. And those two things were things that my dad had, and I remember smelling that as well. But I don't think I ever wore that myself. So Aramis, simple,
amazing, does
the job.
I'm sure you are far from alone in having this as your first most kind of like impression.
I imagine a lot of people, and I love the fact they're still making it. And maybe it's a little bit different than it was, but it's been around for a while.
It's magic, amazing.
Yeah. What about you?
So my first one is one that I'll just show you. Here it is. So this I do not have enormous hands. This is a little splash bottle of Polo Green. I have not owned this for a while, so I've been trying to track down an old bottle of this, but they do go for a lot of money. So
is this vintage? Is this new?
I don't know how old it is, but I paid quite a lot for it. So
it is vintagey.
I think it is vintagey, and this is one of those fragrances that if you try and buy old bottles, it gets complicated and expensive. So and
they can be spoiled sometimes as well, can't they? You never quite know how they're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, buying miniatures is a great way to
it's like a little shop,
buy old fragrances, I think. But
I'm already getting a little
hint. I was a little bit. This is later for me. So I was about.
Really
I think I was about 12 or 13 the first time I remember wearing this, and my dad used to wear this all the time, and he then bought what I now know to be Safari, Ralph Lauren Safari.
Oh, that's good stuff as well.
So kind of shortly come out. So we're like early 90s, 94, 5. I can't remember when it came out. Anyway, and so he gave me, and I think he had a big, like a 200ml splash bottle of this. And I was about 13, and it was the first time I was slightly kind of becoming aware of girls. I remember I had choir practice on a Friday night with the girls. So, and my dad giving it to me, and I thought, okay, what I'm basically going to do is go, absolutely like obliterated myself in it.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone saying, oh my God, you smell really strong. They probably actually smell, you smell disgusting, but I just remember thinking, fucking, I'm really cool.
I smell good.
I'm so going to get
laid. I have to say, if it was that stuff there, then I wouldn't be surprised, because that's amazing. The oak moss is really strong on that.
It's really good.
It's instantly noticeable from the current formulation of that.
Magical, beautiful green. It's gold Polo green, but it really just from. And I remember after I got through this 200ml bottle, I think it felt like a massive bottle. It may not have been a 200ml bottle, but after getting through that, I remember my dad having another one, because I think it was his fragrance that he decided he'd moved on from, and he had a couple of bottles. So I ended up just with having several bottles of Polo Green and just wearing. And this was, as I say, the time when I started to become aware of girls. It was also just about the same kind of time that Aqua de Gio, CK1, Issei, Miyake, what's it called? Issei?
Yeah, L'Odyssey. 94.
They were all coming around, and they were, the cool kids. As you get like 14, 15 and people started to become cool, the cool kids, they had the CK1s and the Issei L'Odyssey, and there was me rocking, absolutely marinating myself in this Polo Green. And I really feel, I kind of looking back, I feel that it must have informed my taste somehow because there's. Oh, it's so good! It's so good. This oak mossy, piney, tobacco-y.
Fantastic. Oh,
I mean, something like Mousse Illuminé we were just talking about by Rogue.
The first reference
owes a lot to this.
Oh God! But I tell you what, the current stuff that's out there is really good, and I would heartily recommend it to anyone. But then smelling this is just another level.
It's amazing, isn't it?
The oak moss and the creaminess and the richness of it, and
so smooth.
It's just no rough edges on there at all. The current stuff, I think, it just has a little bit of a bite to it.
There's
that's
no
just so
bite.
elegant.
This is just so smooth and
this wasn't some big fancy niche thing.
No.
This was Ralph Lauren Ralph Lauren green.
Yeah.
Available in
everywhere
in the high streets and absolutely fantastic.
I mean, but it's tricky. I've been sort of hunting for a vintage bottle for a while, but it's difficult. They go for lots of money, and I wasn't sure, which is why I think the miniature. And I do recommend if you're trying to find a vintage bottle and you don't want to spend mega bucks, do look up for the miniatures because they are around. There was loads of them were available. So
I think that's absolutely the way to go. And often these things are a nostalgia trip, aren't they? It's something you just want to have on hand as a reference.
As you said with the Aramis, you don't want to wear it every day. Occasionally, you want to smell it and go, "Oh yes, I remember being 13."
Yeah, absolutely.
Wooing those choir girls on a Friday night.
I mean, and really, I have to say, it's silly for me to have these big bottles because they probably don't get used up, and they just sit there. But to smell that and just be transported back in time is a gift. I like that. I'm going to get one of those. Are you going to spray that into an atomizer to have occasional?
No, I think I'm going to leave it like that and just have a little.
Perfect. It's a little jewel, like a little X-ray.
Yeah.
From the turn of the century. Right, what have I got? See, I've got quite a few things in here, but some of these are a little bit more modern. Again, no surprises here actually, or maybe a surprise. I don't know. Kourous.
Lovely.
Now I've skipped forward in time because, in fact, I did, and some of these are things I just don't have anymore. I did go through a phase of wearing CK1. I had a little bit of that. Give that a spritz, and I like that. I like the freshies, but I always had this slight edge of wanting something with a bit of funk to it, a little bit of something dangerous. And I remember in about 97, 98. New Year's Eve, we had this big party at this church nearby where I played the organ, and I was wearing some awful tropical Hawaiian shirt, and I wore like a ton of this, and I remember it really vividly. Yeah, New Year's Eve in St Jude's Church in Courtfield Gardens in Gloucester Road, and it was another pivotal thing that showed me that I like things that had some edges and some not sort of funky, dirty, but just something that had a bit of attitude.
This is reasonably modern,
something.
Isn't it?
This is a few years old, 5 or 6 years old maybe.
So it doesn't quite have that fun.
It doesn't have the punch that the old one had. I mean, the old stuff was enormous actually, and I remember that. We smelled it.
We were smelling some perfume material, some oils and materials earlier, and I let Joe smell some Animalis by Cinerome, which is what made Kourous smell of the funk.
Yeah, and it's fantastic.
It is fun, and there's not much of it in this. I don't think
this current stuff is a quite wearable fougere with a little bit of attitude, but
it still takes you back, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it takes you back to that place.
It's the same thing. I can still recognise it for what it was, and I love it. I think it's absolutely of its time. Maybe it's still quite daring for its time. I don't know if this was maybe 81 or something like that. So we're still in the kind of chest hair territory. But yeah, I'm glad they've not discontinued it.
You were chest hair territory.
I was ready. I was all set to go. I had a motorbike.
Lovely.
So yeah, I'm glad they're still making it because I think YSL have gone in a bizarre direction with some of the things they've done.
It's so important. I mean, the day they discontinue Kourous, there's going to be
that'll be hell to pay. Boots will never look the same again.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kourous for me, Aramis. The other things are all quite a lot more recent, but those are two pivotal things from 10 years old, from about 18 years old, and then university happened, and we won't talk about that because I can't remember. But yeah.
Well, I was going to just briefly talk about university.
Yeah.
So I'm skipping. This is the only Polo Green is the only one fragrance I really remember wearing regular. I did wear Polo Sport a bit.
Yeah, that was lovely stuff as well.
But when I went to university, now I don't have this fragrance, but the fragrance I wore for almost the entirety of my university and I did have some other things in rotation, but this was the one I got for birthdays, for Christmas. Always asked for it. I do not have now. Was Gucci Envy.
Yeah, I had a few.
It was the first time I remember saying like, "Oh, this is the one I want. Can you get this? Can you get this? Can you get this?" And if like my parents went, on a flight or something, they would say, "Oh, can you pick one at the airport?" Gucci Envy, and it's now incredibly, considering it wasn't discontinued that long ago, it's incredibly expensive
It's bonkers
to buy. You're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
I think I can see you coming away with the bottle at some point.
Yeah, I keep thinking about it, but I'm always worried about spending 300 quid on a bottle in it to be.
If it's turned to rat's piss as well.
But it's that ginger, spicy cardamom incense.
So good. Thanks to Tom Ford being at the helm of Gucci at the time, it's amazing, isn't it?
And I wonder, like I was saying, how those fragrances have informed my kind of taste. It's not a hugely cardamom heavy, but cardamom is a note which I've always loved since then in fragrance, and even in anything. I love it in cardamom coffee. If you have Middle Eastern coffee with a bit of cardamom, but fragrances which are cardamom heavy, I've always enjoyed. Incense fragrances.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love the whole box and design as well. I remember you had to remove the heavy cap, and you had to remove these kind of big not felt, the sort of sponge things on either side that it sort of slotted into, and the green juice. It was a very beautiful thing.
My parents bought me a splash bottle instead of the eau de toilette.
Oh, death! Yeah.
And because it was such a big cap, you would like take it over and like spill the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get the point of splash bottles. They can be so messy.
But I don't have it now. We did the last time we smelt it was in a video where Greggy Boy sent us some samples. He sent us some Gucci Envy.
And I still have the sample completely unopened, so I'll bring it for you next time I see you, and you can have it.
Yeah.
And you can wear it again. But yeah, that's great stuff, Gucci Envy. Isn't it?
But I don't have that.
Bring it back. I mean, Tom Ford, if you're listening, if you released that as one of the private blends, and called it something else.
I mean, why did it?
Just do it.
I mean, there's nothing. Unless he just moved on and took the formula with him.
Who knows? Who's the perfumer? I can't remember that. I have a theory of someone it might be, but I'm not sure. Great stuff.
Lovely.
Really beautiful.
What's
well, on the subject of Gucci, I think this is probably the next one in the lineup, actually.
No, that's another one. Which
another discontinued gem.
Let's spray it.
Oh yeah. We should.
This is another one which, if you were to try and buy it now, will cost you a lot of money.
It's a lot. I hardly ever wear it. I mean,
Should we just do one straight?
It's pretty much full. I mean, even that sound is familiar. I always just check in on the health of the bottle. I need to give it a clean. So there we go. Let's give it a bit of it. Now this stuff I wore a lot from about 2003ish when it came out. And it's so beautiful. There's incensey, pepper, shavings.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I love that juice. I wore it a lot. It was my kind of going out clubbing fragrance. And it just gave me confidence. It was the first time I can remember wearing a perfume
that's really good.
And just feeling like $1 million,
You can see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah, and just the bottle as well. I mean, it's a funny story. I got this for 39 quid. Look at that. I got this for 39 quid in a pharmacy in Barnes 6 months after noticing it, when I remembered I actually wanted to get it, and it was a big journey.
That long ago? I mean,
no, I mean,
not long ago, like 5-6 years ago.
Maybe 5 or 6 years. And now I think they're going for hundreds of pounds, which is ridiculous. But I do love it. And interestingly, this perfume now, if you want pretty much the same thing, Bentley Absolute. It's the same perfumer. I can't remember his name, Michel Almirac or something like that, or Almirac. I can't remember quite how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, but he did Bentley Absolute, and it's the same idea. I don't know how it works in terms of performance. Maybe it's not quite the same in terms of the composition, but to my nose, is pretty much there. But isn't it beautiful? I mean,
it's really. I mean,
1,000 miles away from the sort of the designer swill of the day. This is 2003.
But also, like, it feels. It feels, it feels 21st. Is it 21st century? When did it come out?
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely feels like, it's not. It doesn't feel like a traditional fragrance. It feels that kind of incensey, peppery, pencil shaving-y.
Yeah, it's got that vintage vibe to it with those things as well.
But I don't know. But I was going to say not vintage. Actually, it doesn't feel like a.
I see what
classic.
you mean.
It feels quite modern. It feels really forward-looking.
The ingredients, they give it a modern edge, I think,
Yeah.
and it feels quite lean and sharp and energetic. But it's still, for me, it has this vintage nod. The woodsiness of it, and just in terms of what was around it at the time.
Yeah.
So I love it, and I think it was really pivotal to me. I went through several bottles of this. The last one I finished, I remember, in about 2009 or 10, and I picked up in a pharmacy in Gloucester Road, and they still had a couple of bottles there, and I remember ploughing through that like it was water. And at the time, you don't think, you're just wearing it, and now I'm so much more guarded about it. Yeah, but I love it, and I think, there's not much in there, but I hardly ever wear it, but occasionally I'll just go and smell the cap and go, Gucci Porom. And I've got Porom 2 as well, which is the blue coloured one, which is kind of tea leaf, and that's really beautiful as well. Actually, the more I smell it, the more I like it. No, they're not. And I remember for a while seeing Gucci 2 and thinking, why is this stuff out? Gucci 1, I want that. And now I appreciate 2 as well. So maybe
And then it'll be discontinued.
That's gone. No, that's gone as well.
Yeah.
That's long gone. You can still get it for reasonable.
For now.
Prices. So anyway,
Lovely.
There we go.
So my, where is it? Next one. So is Santal by Floris.
Great
so this was moving on to just after I left university. So it would have been about 2005, 2006. And I remember going down Jermyn Street, which is a street in London, which is basically full of tailors, with my then fiance, now wife, and just thinking, you're growing up. It's time to take yourself seriously. Like, go down.
You need a proper conservative fragrance from the.
And there are. I mean, I guess Penhaligon's was initially based around St James's, wasn't it? Now no longer a different company, but Floris is. You see lots of companies claiming to have a very, very old lineage. Floris is one with you can. And you can
they are
see
legit.
The pictures on there. The royal, not the royal warrant. What do you say? Royal.
Yeah, the warrant. The by appointment to the Queen.
By appointment to the Queen. And this is the one that I bought, and I remember buying it and thinking, this is my first expensive fragrance.
Yeah,
it's expensive, but my first.
That wasn't the designer.
Yeah, my first non-designer fragrance. And I felt like
it's so good.
I felt like I felt like James Bond when I bought this. I thought, oh my god, this is the most suave, sophisticated.
Do you know that is a really, really, really good perfume?
Yeah.
Do you know? I wonder sometimes if Pierre Bourdon had a hand in that somewhere along the line. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'd be really interested to find that out. There's just a little DNA to something else which I'm not going to mention.
It's absolutely. It's kind of grassy, slightly, gently spicy sandalwood, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just got little sort of popping herbs and spices there.
Slightly tarragon-y, slightly like hints of light green herbs.
Little sweetness as well, just a little touch of sweetness.
And it still
creamy.
Makes you feel like super.
It's really
James
beautiful.
Bondy.
I think they're a great house florist. We should do a video on them sometime. There are so many amazing things. I think that is the pinnacle for me.
I still love wearing it. I mean, I don't know. I've had like 4 bottles of it or so, and it's just one that I still, and still kind of coming back to it after several hundred or thousand fragrances later.
Yeah. Do you get a slight relation to Jaipur?
Yes.
Just sort of
not quite as kind of cinnamony, but yeah. But definitely
just sort of the effervescence of it. Really beautiful.
By Bouchon, yeah.
I mean, also
I love it.
It's worth mentioning they're still really good bloody value for money.
Yeah.
They've not gone into the crazy directions of the likes of Penhaligon's, who I think have gone slightly wild.
I don't know. I don't think anybody else owns them. I mean, they haven't been bought like.
No, I can't think so. And the advantage is if you go down to Jermyn Street to their shop, then there's a really good cheese shop next door, which is really nice. I can't remember, Paxton and something or other.
Yeah. Good combination as well. Good
I prefer to wear this than the cheese, but hey.
Love it.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
What's your next?
My next, well, can I do a sort of double whammy? Because
Sure,
they were both discoveries at the same time for me, and you'll be surprised by this, I think. So it's a double Creed whammy. Now, I've criticised Creed a little bit occasionally, but for good reason. But these two I discovered at the same time, just about. And I remember just wandering around Harrods, smelling things. The first one I think the first one I bought was Bois de Portugal, and I really enjoyed it. But Green Irish Tweed at the same time was the sort of the freshy equivalent. Now, the current stuff, I have to say, I think is a shadow, and this is what's slightly sad about it, is that this is fairly recent.
Can we have a?
Let's have a spritz. This is pre the kind of 100 mils and 50 ml bottles that they do. But it was much darker once upon a time. It was a big sort of a big dark thing.
It's a great fougere, isn't it? I mean,
it really is. I mean, it's lovely. I think it's really well made.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done well with it. But I remember, similar to you, I thought this was the first time I bought something and thought, this is my first sort of like
big
expensive fragrance. Yeah, I remember buying a 30 ml bottle of this, and it's a little 30 ml thing, and this was about 2005-ish, and it was about 85 or 90 pounds, which at the time for a 30 ml bottle was like extortionately. It was eye-watering. But I loved it, and I wore it a lot. I mean, it's actually getting richer in the bottle, I think, which is nice. But I mean,
really good.
Even try the current stuff now compared to this, and it's much lighter. And this stuff already is a much lighter thing than the original. So I'm sorry, it's a double whammy. I'm cheating a little bit, but
not at all.
they were both throughout. And I have to say, Creed in a way was the thing that introduced me to the concept of like a sort of niche, something that's a little bit out of the high street realms. And the other thing at the same sort of time was Green Irish Tweed, which we both know and have enjoyed a lot. I mean, even there, that stuff is doing well off the.
I've got
the original.
I've got 120 ml like Green.
Oh, the black
Tweed,
one, yeah.
Which is, I think it's about. I haven't worn it for ages. It's probably like 10 years old or something.
Yeah.
Maybe like 12 years old. And it's definitely my favourite Creed fragrance.
Yeah,
I have to say, having read The Ghost Perfumer.
Yeah, I need to get that.
Strangely, I have a kind of renewed enthusiasm in Creed. I think we've kind of avoided it just because everybody else talks about it as if they're the only fragrances ever.
Yeah.
But and also now it's kind of out in the open and everyone agrees that it's the same. Do you mind if I pick this up?
Yeah, go for it.
The same perfumer.
Yeah, I mean that's an
It's the same
look.
perfumer.
Pierre Bourdon.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I have kind of a renewed enthusiasm for Creed. I mean, not so much I would buy Creed now, but
do you know they're well made, they're well put together.
Classic French perfume.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think
done with great materials.
The marketing stuff I can happily live without. All the bump about we made this for for Jesus. Yeah, it's so tedious.
And the whole Aventus bubble and
yeah, it's tedious. But they've done some great stuff. And we were in Rome a few years ago. Actually, not very long ago, 2018, I think it was. And we went into this little shop, like a tucked away little shop that had loads of perfume. And they had lots of old Creeds, like Royal English Leather, Orange Spice.
Royal Delight, do they have Royal Delight?
Royal Delight, yes, Royal Delight. And Orange Spice, which is, again, a Pierre Bourdon thing, we think, which is very similar to Kourous. So there is a history there, but it's just not 300 years old in terms of perfume, I think. But yeah, these were important to me because they took me down that avenue of saying, okay, the stuff that you can buy in the high street is great, but there are also these unknown brands that are out there. And I thought that was the height of luxury, which is what they wanted you to think. But the perfumes are well made. At the time, I enjoyed them. And so they were an important part of my journey, I think, as are the next few, in a different way. So yeah,
awesome.
Creed.
So for me, this one was the real one which turned me. Which kind
into the devil.
which turned me from somebody with a slight interesting fragrance to somebody who would go on to spend tens of thousands of pounds on fragrance. That is
The bug.
Timbuktu from L'Artisan Parfumeur. And it was in these, stalls when Joe, I remember, as I was starting to get into things, Joe was like, oh, why don't you try this? And he would bring things to me, and I'd smell Green Arrow Tweed and think, oh, wow, that smells amazing.
Yeah.
Smell Tom Ford Extreme and think, wow, that smells really, really, really good. And then smell this, and I was like, oh my God.
That's another sphere.
This was another world, and so unlike. I'm trying to think when it was. Was it like 2008, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe around about, and just being absolutely transported to another world, and it still does it. Interestingly, I can kind of see the relationship to Santal and Envy now, spraying after the.
Yeah.
But L'Artisan Parfumeur are the first real indie perfumers. Yeah, I guess them and maybe Socially Talent as well. But L'Artisan Parfumeur, especially in
they go back to the 70s, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
With making things like these, not this.
But some. I mean, this was. It came out about 2006 or 7, didn't it? But
yeah.
But real experimental, creative. Oh, wow,
it's so beautiful, isn't it? Mango and incense.
Mango, incense.
Would you ever think that would be your sort of choice of notes?
People call it a vetiver fragrance, which I suppose it kind of is, but I just get this explosion of tropical fruit, bright with zesty incense, and it's just so wow. It's
absolutely beautiful as well. It's
so
like
elegant.
a real smile of a fragrance when
and
you
in
first
a way, it feels like
whiff.
I was thinking it's almost a similar in a kind of structure to something like, like a Ventus, that you've kind of got fruit with something kind of woodier and heavier underneath, but. And so maybe it's not hugely original in terms of structure, but just in terms of smell, it just opened my mind. I was like, wow, what is this? I just felt transported and
Bertrand Duchefort, isn't it? Doing his amazing things.
It was this, I could almost, if I had to put it down to one fragrance, it would be this, which turned me.
Because it's just so beautifully done. It's a very simple concept in a way. Mango, something fruity and beautiful. Incense, a bit of vetiver to give it some grassy body underneath. But the thing is, so it's not a mess of notes. There's no fight going on. It's just a beautifully smooth, elegant French thing, but with some modern edge.
But tropical. It's French elegance, but with tropical. Almost. It felt kind of almost experimental, but. A well-executed experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. It paid off, whatever he was trying to do.
Oh, thank you,
isn't it?
Thank you, Joe, for
no worries, mate.
Introducing me.
I'm glad you like it. Again, another fragrance Dan knows very well. This old chestnut. Of
course, yeah.
Tuscan Leather. This has been important to me because I wore this a lot. And
look at that box. Look how bad
the box is destroyed completely. I've sellotaped it. It's completely and utterly, like I was going to say, besmirched. But yeah, it is. It is destroyed. But this is from when
you've lost it. The top.
The top of the lid is gone. This thing has seen a lot of abuse. But I first wore this when it came out, and I remember thinking, let's go for it. I don't know if there's even anything in there. I can't see that.
I wouldn't dare pump
my thing. No, nothing's even coming out. I mean, you can get a bit off the cap there. I mean, it's still there. This
much
for
imitated.
Me, much imitated. Seldom bettered. I think that this thing, it showed me that perfume could be something really edgy and dangerous. Like the Creeds were something different, expensive, and they had this sort of faux luxury thing about them. The Gucci I loved because it sort of had something a little bit vintage about it, but still modern and energetic. And they all put me in a certain mood. But the Tom Ford I smelled and I thought, wow, that smells of concrete and
petrol.
I've never had cocaine, but this cocaine and raspberry thing, and it was sort of brooding and oily and so masculine. I remember thinking, God, I smell like Clint Eastwood, And for a simple idea really, which is just this kind of raspberry leather thing, I think it's incredible, and it
Smells
smells so familiar now.
But it's so familiar, and it's easy, we smell loads of more kind of experimental and kind of risk-taking fragrances. But it's amazing to think that, a Tom Ford private blend taking risks with something like that.
Yeah, I mean this for me is what makes me now appreciate, including something I'll show you later, what makes me appreciate some of the big dark, kind of heavy-hitting, dangerous things that we smell now. I think it stems from having first tried this all those years ago and thinking, God, that's out there, And of course now, and to be honest, maybe it was at the time. It's not now because of what's happened, but these things have inspired a lot.
So many,
all these big Santal leathers and
loads of,
all that sort of world, and the big.
Not to mention the direct clones as well.
The direct clones,
the Rasasi, and
but even Tom Ford now is kind of cloning of this. Ombre leather, ombre leather when it was a private blend. It was all a variation on this. They still make it, which is good. I've not smelt the current stuff, and I might do it out of interest at some point and see how it relates. But I think it's good juice, and it was important to me. I wore it a lot. In all weathers, and it made me feel $1 million, £1 million, whatever. I thought, that's it. I'm Clint Eastwood, and I rule the world. Yeah, I still am. But I like my white florals now and gentle things as well. So yeah, I don't know how many I've got. I've got two more. No, I've got one more. Two more.
I've got quite a few more actually.
Good. This is good.
Right. So my next one is, Mouchoir de Monsieur. So this was not my first Guerlain fragrance today. My first Guerlain fragrance was Abbey Rouge, which I still own and love and wear. But I remember, and that gave me the bug for not just vintage fragrances, but the tradition of fragrances. But especially this one,
the heritage of them.
Yeah, the heritage, exactly. Yeah. As opposed to Creed, which is a fake heritage, Guerlain is a real. Oh, I love it so much.
The real deal,
I love it so much. And when I smelt it, I kind of fell in love with it. But it also feels. This is a kind of version of Jicky, but with a lot more funk, and it led me into this kind of love of funk and love of vintage. And I guess I kind of discovered this soon after first smelling Timbuktu, and it was just another chapter in my opening my mind to this world of getting a snapshot of this old world. And we look at pictures. If you look at pictures from the turn of the 20th century, they look so as if it's a different world, and we can't associate with it. But to be able to spray something and put yourself there,
it really does transport you back, doesn't it?
I love the fact that it's almost like a kind of polite fougere, but then it just has that quite substantial amount of funk in it, which would put some people off. But I absolutely adore it.
It's absolutely ingenious.
Discontinued now, of course.
Is it?
Recently. Well, I think maybe you can still buy it. I mean, I've got several backup bottles, including that big bottle which we got.
That's really nice, isn't it? Yeah. It's a real masterpiece, and that some of the fragrances here might go into that category, but not all. They have personal attachments to us.
Yeah.
But this is one that definitely firmly belongs in the category of masterpiece, I think. It's that good. It's that good.
Really special. Every time I smell it, takes me right back there.
Oh, so good. I think of the Ritz whenever you smell this, because that reminds me of you saying it. So my image is you there doing.
I do wear it.
Doing your thing.
Similar
to Dan, Jicky for me on the Guerlain thing. The first Guerlain I think I ever sprayed and enjoyed.
Really?
But crucially for me, the reason this is important is that this is the perfume that broke the gender gap in perfume, the gender divide. This was the one that made me think, oh, it's marketed for women, but I like it and I can wear it. Interesting. Where else can I go?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's growing up in the 1890s and feel, despite CK1, everything was hyper men or women. Yeah. You either go into the women's section or the men's section, and never the twain shall meet.
That was it, exactly.
We're in a different place now.
And I was still there, even the most recent things like like these guys were very much the kind of men's perfume. And a friend of mine, Seb Wybrew, started talking to me about Guerlain years ago, and he said, "Oh yeah, Jicky is amazing. You should try Mitsuko." And I smelled all these things and thought, "Wow, incredible!"
Yeah.
But even then, I appreciated them in their own right, but I didn't really wear them. And then Jicky changed all of that, and apart from being the first sort of modern perfume, this is the thing that I wore that made me think, I don't care if this is marketed to anyone.
And it opens, and it then opens up a whole world.
Yeah, that's it. It kind of rapidly opened up an entire new horizon of perfumery.
All these things which we've been
great.
hitherto kind of ignoring. Oh, amazing. Kumaranik, Fougère. You get the relation to
beautiful old bottles as well.
To Mouchoir de Monsieur.
Yeah.
I mean, such close cousins, aren't they?
They are. They kind of nestle up against each other. This is quite a bit cleaner, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't have
and leaner. Yeah. But also we have to remember this is it's not vintage, but it's pretty old, and so it may have lost a fair old bit over time. I don't know. But I mean, I almost get a gassy thing in there, like a gassy violet leaf or something.
Yeah, interesting.
Almost sort of Fahrenheit-y.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never got that before.
It's maybe just my nose today is playing up. But yeah, I love it. And 1889. It's the oldest perfume I have.
Apart from Hassan
Hassan Hannah, she was a year earlier, wasn't it? Yes, good point. Very good point. But it still wears today like anything else.
Yes, modern,
that I enjoy.
Modern,
yeah,
100%.
And Guerlain, the founders, I think still the best out there. And even when we don't always agree with the directions they might go in with various things, we still have a kind of a love and respect for them.
We do want to try the new Abbey Rouge.
Yeah, there's a new Abbey Rouge
coming out
flanker
in a few
called
weeks.
Instinct, is it?
Yeah. Instinct.
Yeah, Jicky, important part of my journey. I was going to say my journey.
Journey.
My
journey. This is a very obvious segue to my next one.
Oh.
Look how empty this is.
That had to be in the list, didn't it?
Shalimar! For exactly...
Wonderful.
I mean, it's really empty. I have a real issue with finishing bottles. I get to this empty and then I just leave them, which is really, really bad because they really over-oxidise and become awful. But this, I mean, for me, this was the first female fragrance I owned.
Yeah.
And there's nothing female about it. But I mean, it's just a
an absolutely
irisy, leathery, floral, absolute vanillic.
Do you know, after you smell all this other stuff, you still come back to the masterpieces. Yeah. They're still
absolutely supremely elegant, utter sophistication, beautifully
that's just so
complex.
Rich, isn't it? It's just so
I feel the kind of vanilla filling the space.
The vanilla, but also this slightly gentle funk and this purring. It's like a purring, radiating, pulsating thing.
Really resonance as well. It's like a pop and X and everything. I mean,
and that's just the opening spray. I mean, that's not even thinking about the dry down and how it just settles on the skin and does its amazing thing.
There's nothing feminine.
No.
I mean, about either of these two fragrances. I mean, if you want to dip your toes into trying feminine fragrances, Jicky and Shalimar are the obvious places to start.
Yeah, do it, honestly. I mean, this whole thing in a lot of... I don't know if I'm still accurate here, because I've not smelt them, but the stuff that's marketed to women these days having to smell like candy or flowers.
Fruit chili,
I'd
also say, just in terms of, we're talking about some old fragrances, obviously, and Shalimar is an old fragrance, but I think it is out of all the Guerlain fragrances, it's the fragrance which doesn't seem to have suffered reformulation that much.
Yeah.
Because, I suppose there's cumin in it, which is now restricted, but there's you don't have the issue of oak moss or Liril.
Yeah, I think, in a way, it's so old, it's bypassed all the shit that's happened since, hasn't it? It's stuck to its roots. Having said that, I'd love to smell a turn of the century bottle in its perfect condition and see what that was all about.
Amazing.
Which we sort of did at the Osmotek, didn't we? We got the original formula.
Beautiful.
That's so good, isn't it? Well, I've only got one more left. which again Dan knows very well. It's Ottoman Empire by the mighty Aramis Lador. Now the reason this is so pivotal is because I realised for the first time what one crazy dedicated individual could do in terms of the box smells funny. I don't like the smell of the box, interestingly. I like the perfume inside the box, but I don't like the box. But yeah, what one guy could do, I mean, that's just, Dan introduced me to this. We went to Rome and Dan was wearing it, and I just thought this is absolutely incredible. But Aramis Lador, you know, the opulence and the sort of complete unapologetic confidence of this fragrance is enormous. And it's just so huge and voluptuous.
And I mean, yeah, and just discover these. I mean, there's a big conversation to be had about whether having natural ingredients makes a perfume better, but to discover all those expensive, you know, ouds and rose, all those beautiful, amazing materials in such high doses.
Yeah,
which you do not get. I mean, you don't get in Guerlain, you don't get in any of these other fragrances that we've talked about.
That's it.
Opened up a whole new world.
The freedom for someone who's dedicated enough to go. I have to put that little arrow there so I know which way is up. The freedom for someone to just go out there and find the best materials they can, and just spend, you know, years in some cases finding the perfect formula for something. It's inspiring. And I think I didn't also realise before things like this that perfume didn't have to come attached to a big brand or even a small niche brand, you know, like L'Artisan or, you know, or those guys. The fact that, you know, it could be such a personal journey. This is the only one I own from Aramis.
We will carry on the conversation, but I will just mention my next choice as well.
Oh yeah,
which is
absolutely,
which is Ottoman Empire. I mean,
it's so fantastic, isn't it?
And yeah, as I say,
this is the original Ottoman
Empire.
It
opened up a whole new world.
It really did, didn't it?
It really did. It just started us looking at in a different kind of type of fragrance, a whole new direction. This not just niche, but this artisan, handmade, one person running their own show. Nobody to answer to.
Oh, I mean, it's just
and I just
staggeringly good, isn't
just
it?
Being so, I guess in the same way for me that when Timbuktu, when I first smelled that, I was like, oh my god, this is a whole other world. We then smelt lots and lots of niche fragrances, and then smelling this, I was like, oh my god, I have no reference point for this.
That's it. There's nothing in our noses, in our memories that comes close to what this is doing.
Nasal vocabulary.
Yeah, even smelling that now, I just think it kind of floors you a little bit.
Yeah.
And everything that Aramis and Bortnikov and those guys have done. I mean, it sort of got me into zoologist.
Yeah.
Going to that side of things, print. Yeah. And you know, something that's a little bit further away from the European, the sort of European tradition.
Yeah.
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Amazing. So I've just got one more.
Yes. What is it? What have you got?
I mean, this feels like a very.
Can you better Ottoman Empire?
To finish. And it is.
Do you know? I thought about bringing this as well.
It is the Waft from Loft.
Yes.
So I mean, and I had to include this for several reasons. One, because you know it kind of sums up what we've been doing here.
Yeah.
Wafting from our Loft.
I thought you might bring it, so I didn't. Yeah, but this is pivotal to both of us, isn't it?
I mean, huge. I mean, also carrying on from exactly what you're saying about the nature of somebody, running a business. I remember when I first encountered 4,160 Tuesdays. First one I smelt was Shazam. The first one I bought was Ealing Green.
Absolute masterpieces. Yeah.
But I remember buying Ealing Green, and then I remember tweeting, because that's what people did back then, about it, and Sarah McCartney replying, and I thought, oh my god, Sarah McCartney
she's tweeting me back.
She's so excited. And then little did I know that
this is an absolute
that we would then invite her to the Loft, and we would speak with her and spend time with her, and I still think
that's such a privilege that we've got to know her.
I mean, it's such a privilege, and it's for me, it's so such an incredible part of the journey that we've gone from smelling stuff in boots to smelling stuff in department stores to buying niche fragrances to talking to perfumers, and then to having a perfume make a fragrance from us.
This is so special to both of us, isn't it? I have to say, as a purely objective bystander, it's brilliant.
It is.
If I didn't know what this was, I'd still say that's absolutely divine.
I've had I had a time last week actually. I saw someone who hadn't seen, a good friend who I hadn't seen for months, and he was wearing this. And you can smell it off and you think, oh, that's amazing. It really, such complexity.
And it's so personal, and it captures this. It captures this environment and what we do and the journey that we've been on. It's just such an honor. Even the other day, I was really proud to introduce Martha, my partner, to Sarah, because she came with me to this pop-up. And I said, oh, this is Sarah, this is Martha. And it was just a really nice moment, because they're both really important people in different ways, of course. But it's such an honor to look at that bottle and say, oh, that's part of us. That's part of our sort of relatively short journey in terms of doing this stuff up here. But obviously the perfume journey is longer, isn't it, as this little table organ bench will testify. You can't see this down here, but there's a line up here of amazing things.
It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And different. It's just very... I don't have any reference points for that. It's just...
No, occasionally I now smell things like... You almost smelled that Ludo by Sarah Baker, and I thought, oh yeah, that reminds me a bit of Wafts from the Loft. Because it's like a complex, resinous, woody...
People may imitate the masterpiece now, of course. But I smell it, and I'm instantly taken to the process of making it. Those days in the
especially, and then over lockdown
in the studio,
lockdown, and then over
smelling all the samples back and forth. Amazing. What a little collection of gems, and what a journey.
Amazing.
And the thing is, with this, it's never ending. We will in a few months, a few years, we will probably have completely different taste again. Waft will always stay a masterpiece, I think. But we might suddenly get really into a certain type of floral, or we may hate the big, scary things that.
Big oody things.
We might. Who knows? And we're both different. We don't always agree on stuff. That's the exciting thing. But these are important to us, aren't they? They're pivotal fragrances.
And these never will lose they won't. There'll just be more in this video. If we were to do this video in 10 years, there'll be more. We couldn't.
We will, and we will still include all these and add a load more too.
Anyway, it's been emotional.
Yeah, it's been great.
But people let us... I'm sure there are lots of people out there that've got the fragrance their nan used to wear, or the first fragrance they wore to a high school prom or whatever.
Those, what...
Fragrance they lost their virginity to.
Well, that would be an interesting video. We probably should... presumably it wouldn't be a very long video. Was it? Interesting choice.
Yeah.
I can't remember much about it. No, but the point being is keep smelling good and keep remembering these things, because they are part of you. They're not toiletries in the bathroom. They're experiences.
It's been emotional.
Yeah.
So, let us know. But until next time,
bye.
Happy sniffing.